adapt. Don't get scared. Have the courage to take on new experiences. It can be very intimidating because, to be very honest, I think immigrants are some of the bravest people. We've left everything familiar. We've left our families behind. We've left everything for a brighter future for ourselves. And we come with a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience. Do not lose that sense of bravery and courage. Do not get scared to dive in and to upskill. Do not get scared to go back to school. Do not get scared to break out of your community and talk to people from different communities to integrate. Do not get scared to not just celebrate your festivals, but integrate Canadian festivals into your lifestyle. You're here to expand your world. Do not get scared to open up your world.
Welcome to Marketing Over Chai. Today I'm joined by Joyeeta Ray, a versatile marketing professional who has worked as a copywriter, a journalist, editor, senior reporter all around the world. She is currently a content writer and an SEO strategist at one of Canada's leading financial institutions. I was lucky I got a chance to meet her via the New Canadian Media as Mentor program, where she reviewed an article I wrote for them. Today, we're discussing the evolution of content from print to digital. Welcome, Joyeeta. I'm very happy to have you here today.
Thank you so much, Kate. It's a huge honor and privilege. And before we start this, I would like to just add a couple of things. Firstly, congratulations to you. It's
Aw.
like really wonderful to see you sitting on this side of the seat. And the second thing, more importantly, I would like to honor, recognize, and respect the original peoples of this land. We are nearing September 30th. It's time for the National Truth and Reconciliation Day for all of us to reflect on what they've gone through. And you can see I have my mug of chai ready, Indigenous woman art,
Oh, love it.
and she's connected with the world around her, just like I am.
I
So
love
thank you so
it.
much. Thank you.
Thank you for doing that. I really appreciate it. First things first, what gets you going? I see a nice cup of tea, a very beautifully decorated one. Neat.
It's masala chai. It's it's masala chai, and it's got some soy milk in it. And it's a little bit different from what I usually have. So I'm on this health spree, going away from regular milk into soy milk and almond milk like the rest of the world, hoping it works for me.
I guess it will. So yeah, I do green tea very often, but every once in a while I do need a strong orange pico just to wake me up. That's what I've got in here today. Now let's dive into what has been a very beautiful career journey for you. You've kind of evolved with the way content has, from being a big name in print to now, digital content with your SEO strategies. And you've also worked across geographies. So, can you tell us a little bit about the journey from your advertising in Southeast Asia to your work as an SEO strategist here in Canada?
Well, thank you, Kate. Yeah, it's been quite a journey now that I look back. So I began my life in India. I was born and raised in New Delhi and Bombay, as it was known then. Now it's called Mumbai. And I graduated with English honors. And I'm mentioning this because it played a big role in my life later. I didn't give it much importance then. I really couldn't figure out how Shakespeare's going to help me find a job in the market once I graduated. Then I chose to be in advertising, and I remember my mentor who hired me and who shaped my life journey, my professional journey later. The first thing he said was, forget Shakespeare and forget everything that you've learned. It's not going to help you in this line. You have to learn the language of the street, the common people. So the first lesson was to unlearn everything, relearn, get connected to the grassroots. And from there began my journey, connecting to the grassroots in every country. So right after I joined advertising as a junior copywriter, I was probably the junior most in that agency. And it was quite an interesting journey, even to be with those brilliant minds and to keep learning from them. But then I got married pretty early in my life, and I went to Hong Kong. Now, my husband is from Delhi, but he was already working and quite settled in Hong Kong in the advertising world in those days. Now, that was quite a radical shift for me, as you can imagine. My world suddenly changed overnight. I went into a country where I did not understand the language. I was completely disconnected. I was very young. I did not have a huge body of experience with me. I did not understand the festivals. I did not understand the people, what I was doing over there, how to go forward, nothing. And I think from there, my learning began because suddenly it was like a blank slate. And it was up to me about how I can take things forward. From Hong Kong, we moved off to Malaysia. I'll just give you a little brief of an overview to begin
Mm-hmm.
with. We went off to Malaysia, again, a new country, new language. Everything was different. Indonesia, Bangkok. I worked briefly in Vietnam and now in Canada. So the commonality between all of this is not knowing the language, not knowing the culture, being completely disconnected. So in a professional world, especially for writers where you need to connect with people,
Mm-hmm.
that was like a huge challenging journey. How do I start connecting with people when I don't speak the language? So you sit back and you just learn to listen. You stop talking. You learn, literally, to grow, to absorb. And I was young enough to do that. I was not very set in my ways.
Mm-hmm.
I think that helped. That helped.
Yeah. That's beautiful. And what you say about listening is like so, so important. And I think that's one of the biggest advantages that you have when you come from the outside because you are not tainted with preconceived notions. Haven't really studied what everyone thinks will work. So you're literally coming with an open mind and a blank slate. And it's very easy to point out like things that aren't really working or just assumed to be working. So it is more of an advantage, but unfortunately, it's only us who realize that it is an advantage. And the hiring market kind of sees it a little bit differently, but it doesn't take too long for them to recognize that there is a lot of gain from that fresh perspective. Surely, moving that many geographies could not have been easy. Not knowing the language, was one definite barrier. How did you overcome these?
So I also would like to add one more thing. The journey of a woman is very different from the journey of a man. And the
Okay.
journey of a married woman is even more different than the journey of a married man.
That's very true.
How
Not
is
many
it?
people say it, but it's
Yes,
definitely true.
yes, yes. So for my husband, it's been a linear journey of consistent growth. So he was being, transferred from country to country with better prospects, or he was leaving for a better job. For me, I was leaving everything and having to restart over and over again from scratch every time, following him around, making his dreams come true. So I chose to keep mine in the back seat.
Mm-hmm.
And to be very honest, I was not even really looking forward to joining the work environment right away, because I think for a writer it takes time to connect.
Yeah.
It's not just about writing. You're a writer,
Yeah.
Writing is about resonance.
You have to feel
You,
each and every word
you
that
have
goes
to feel
out, otherwise, it's meaningless.
it's meaningless. You have to understand the culture and the people. But just when you're learning about the culture and the people, and you're reaching a certain peak in your career, you're like leaving it and then having to start over and over again from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a huge challenge. Through that, you have career breaks.
Mm-hmm.
So I had my children. I had one child first, then I left my job. Then I had another child. Then I left my job again just when I was beginning to get connected again. So there were a lot of these breaks happening in my career. And while I was chasing advertising, journalism was also chasing me down. That's a different journey. So I can talk about it in a linear
Sure.
way so that you can understand. So what happened was in Hong Kong, how did I overcome it? These were before the handover days, before it went into the Chinese rule.
Mm-hmm.
So English was spoken by the professionals, but not very widely.
Okay.
Predominantly, I started writing for this international audience, not the local Chinese. And the first thing I learned was British English in Hong Kong is very different from Indian English.
Of course.
So here I am, I've graduated with English honors, and I realize that the way we speak and the way we write is distinctly different. So you have to unlearn and relearn that first.
Mm-hmm.
So that was interesting. Meanwhile, I was also doing a lot of translation work. It's called back translation. So from the Chinese advertising into the English sphere, right?
Nice.
And I learned the difference between different languages, how differently they're spoken. The
Mm-hmm.
nuances differ. So
Mm-hmm.
what works, like what phrase works in the English language may not work in the Chinese language and vice versa.
And may mean something absolutely terrible in another language as
Exactly.
well, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you have to be very sensitive about the way you're translating things without diluting the essence.
Mm-hmm.
That itself is a learning journey. And as you stay on, as you live on, and as you connect with the people, you realize you have to go beyond just the writing and the language barrier to connect on a deeper level to understand the culture. So the way I connect with the Chinese people is different from the way I connect with the international crowd. And the international crowd was very multicultural even at that point in time. They did not just come from one country, right? So that was a huge learning experience. And in those days, Hong Kong was booming. So we had a lot of products. There was like a lot of advertising happening. It was a very glamorous world.
Mm-hmm.
And I was lucky enough to witness that. Very dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
When I went to Malaysia, the demographics changed completely. So there were three demographics predominantly in Malaysia:
Mm-hmm.
the Chinese people, the local Malays, who were called the Bhumiputras, sons of the soil,
Uh-huh.
and the Indians, who were a completely different segment of Indians there.
Oh,
So they're the Tamilians, and Tamil was like one
yes.
of the official languages.
Yes, yes.
Now, I did not have much experience connecting with South Indians.
Yeah, it's a
South
different world
Indians in
completely.
Bombay, it's a different world, and South Indians in India and in Bombay are very different. These are Tamilians who left India decades back.
The
And you
journey is
suddenly
completely different.
realize, yes, and you suddenly realize their world is very different. They're not
Yep.
the same people as you.
Yep.
The Chinese people in Malaysia were very different from the Chinese people of Hong Kong.
Mm-hmm.
Firstly, many of them did not even speak Cantonese.
Okay.
They were speaking Mandarin and Malay and English.
Nice.
So they have been over there for generations, and they have a blend of both the
Yeah.
cultures. And of course, you have the local Malaysians. The
Nice.
Tamilians also included a lot of Sri Lankans. So my boss was a Sri Lankan. So I was working in a company called Densing and Rubicam briefly in Hong Kong and then later in Malaysia, where I met up with this brilliant crowd of people, amazing, extremely talented. And you realize that they are as keen to know you as you are keen to know them.
Mm-hmm.
And the worlds are like all blending together. And that was like probably my first tryst with multiculturalism.
Nice.
Those days, the word did not even exist there. They're just the people of Malaysia.
Yeah. I think it still doesn't exist in India, even though we're like one of the most culturally diverse. Only now that like microcultures are, being exposed and being talked about, but usually it's just stereotyped and, it's not celebrated the way cultures are celebrated here in Canada. So I found that to be a very big difference. And it's kind of sad because India is so full and rich with so many cultures. It would be nice if there was more inclusivity there as well.
Very true. Very true. And to be very honest, it kind of prepares us for a multicultural world in the future as well.
It does.
I think we are more adaptable than a lot of other people because we're used to talking with people who speak a different language.
Yes.
Yeah. So from Malaysia, I went off briefly to Jakarta for a couple of years. In
Mhm.
between, there was Bangkok. I'll come back to that later because we went back and forth to different countries several times. So Jakarta was different because suddenly it was the same or a similar language spoken, Bahasa, as Malaysia, and yet it was a different dialect because Malaysia was colonized by the British at one point in time. So their local language had a lot of English influence.
Mhm.
In Jakarta, it was a Dutch. So
Yeah.
while the language retained a lot of the same essence, it was still different. And you had a completely different sect of Indians there who were all Sindhis.
Interesting.
Very interesting. And suddenly my world changed in Jakarta. I was actually freelancing briefly with a
Nice.
couple of agencies here and there. But then while I was chasing advertising, journalism found me. And what happened was I was told to cover one of the festivals for the community, Indian festivals, which is called Durga Puja, as you know.
Okay.
For people from my community, we are Bengalis from the eastern part of India.
Okay.
And my thought was, but what's the point? Who will understand what this festival is about and who celebrates it? And why should they be celebrating it? And why should we be reading about them? So I wrote this article about the community more than the festival, who the Bengalis are and why were they celebrating the pujas wherever they went. And I think that made a lot of noise because people suddenly woke up and they found a double page spread on the Jakarta Post on a community that was invisible before then. And to be very honest, it was received very well. And then I was appointed by the editor of the newspaper, the Jakarta Post, Jim Reed, who commissioned me to write articles to cover the South Asian community.
I love it.
Yes, and to write things about the community, on the community that the rest of the world was not familiar with. And that was very interesting because I realized I had to do a lot of research and find out a lot of facts, but then I also wanted to go beyond what people knew because the perception of India abroad is not really all roses, as you know. It was very important for me to project the India that I grew up in and let people understand and love the country that I came from. There was so much more happening. So there were like a lot of interviews happening, a lot of event coverages, and I suddenly found my name everywhere. I was connected with the Indian ambassador over there. All of that was happening. And I realized the power of journalism, the power of words. And the Indian community, I will not say South Asian, was predominantly the Indian community. They suddenly became visible to the city, to the country.
Nice.
So
Well, that's the
that was
power
very
of the
moving.
pen, right?
Yes, yes. That was very moving. And it was getting very addictive. Unfortunately, right when I was like reaching my peak, I was again preparing to leave for Bangkok. My husband got a good offer there. So he went off to Bangkok. Again, I gave up everything to move with him. Bangkok was a completely different world again. A whole new language, Thai. There's a Chinese community there over there as well. They've been over there for generations. Very different from the Chinese of Hong Kong, Malaysia, and Jakarta. There's an Indian community which is very different from all the Indians I've ever met in my life, even though I
Okay.
come from India. There was a very predominant Punjabi community, and they are very different because they left India before the partition. So they're not connected with the India that we grew up in. So I was briefly working in the advertising industry over there as well, with a company called Low Worldwide. That itself is very interesting, addressing the international audience, through which I also got the opportunity to work in Vietnam for a short while. So I was like flying down to Ho Chi Minh City on Mondays and coming back on Fridays, heading up the creative department till they found somebody permanent. And while all of this was happening, I decided to go back to Bangkok because what was more important for me was to keep the family together. Now, you sing, of course, but then that's not the priority for a lot of expatriates, as we know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy because for a
It's
lot of
difficult.
reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is difficult, especially when women have top jobs. It's difficult for them to leave everything and to follow their husbands and to start from scratch.
And
I
it's also
chose
like
that for
if you
myself.
have kids, you have to move them from one place, and then depending on what age they are, their comfort of being able to move is also something you have to consider. It's not an easy decision because it's not one person's decision anymore. It's a group. So
Totally, totally. What was also happening was like by then I also had my second child, and the weather may not be suitable always.
oh,
So my younger one became asthmatic in Jakarta, for which we had to move back to Bangkok, which is interesting.
yeah.
And while I was doing all of this, suddenly my world changed all over again when somebody approached me to write articles for a new magazine, Multimedia Thailand's one of the first multimedia magazines called Masala. And I was told to again write an article on one of the festivals, interestingly. I wrote a few articles for them, and just a few months later, they offered me the job of an editor.
Nice.
And I found myself sitting on that seat with no prior experience in editing. And I just knew how to write a story. That's it.
And that's
And
all
then
you really
began a
need, right?
journey. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's been quite a journey. I'm going to move into our next segment, which is more like an icebreaker. So it's a fun round where we're going to get to know you. It's rapid fire style. So I'm going to throw a bunch of questions at you. You're going to tell me the first thing that comes to your mind. Are you ready?
Sure. Absolutely.
So, what's your favorite social media platform?
Facebook.
Email marketing or content marketing?
I think email marketing is part of content marketing. So I would say content marketing. It covers a lot of different diverse spectrums, including email marketing.
Influencer marketing or affiliate marketing?
Difficult to say. I enjoy influencer marketing, but I've not been directly involved in it, no.
Okay. Long form content or short form content?
Again, very interesting because I worked on both ends of the spectrum. I like short form. I think it's more powerful and it's more difficult in many ways.
Emails or meetings?
Emails or meetings? Again, depending on what it is about. Sometimes I prefer emails, but sometimes meetings make more sense, in-person meetings, whether it's on WebEx, because you connect more strongly, definitely.
Are you a morning person or a night owl?
Oh, I'm a writer. I'm a night owl. Not a morning person at all.
Do you like city life or the countryside?
I don't know the countryside. Interestingly, I was thinking about this once. I've always lived in big cities. I'm a very urban person, but I love to take breaks in the countryside. It's very important for me to connect with nature to get recharged.
Okay, so now I'm going to throw some tougher ones at you. What do you think is the biggest marketing trend of 2024?
AI is coming into play. Let's watch out for that.
One word to describe the future of marketing?
I'm clueless, really. It's very complex. We don't know where we're heading. We have no clue where intelligence is heading, where technology is heading.
Yeah.
So no.
Clueless is a good answer.
Let's wait and watch. Yeah. Wait and watch.
Yeah. Most overhyped marketing tool?
Influencer marketing.
Most underrated marketing strategy?
It's nothing called underrated. I think everything has its relevance.
Best piece of marketing advice you ever received?
That's very interesting. The marketing advice, I will not say the advice I will say that I ever received was from my first mentor, Sam Rufus, who I would like to honor because nothing would have happened without his training and his mentoring. So he said one thing. He said, if you're in advertising, you can write for anybody and on any platform.
It's true.
But if you're a journalist, you can't write for advertising. And that really helped me because I think it's very important to be able to sell, even your own stories for that matter. If you can sell, you fit into any forum.
A hobby you're passionate about?
I have many hobbies. One of them is painting, watercolors,
Mm-hmm.
and the other would be cooking. I'm very passionate about cooking. I also like dancing with or without music.
I like that.
Without music and people are like not really watching me.
You should try like the silent discos where you just have like you can
I know.
shoot. Yeah, that's a lot of fun.
I think my mind is always dancing more than me.
That's a lovely space to be in. That's how you know someone's really happy. A book everyone should read.
Oh, there's so many books. I don't even know from where to start. But definitely, I'm a very spiritual person. I think it's very important to be grounded in spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
One of the books that really influenced me was the life story autobiography of a yogi.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that was quite transforming and eye-opening in many ways.
Nice. What is your favorite ad?
Oh, that's so difficult to say. There's so many countries and so many ads.
Top of mind.
Um, very, very difficult. I don't even really watch ads anymore, to be very honest.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't, because it's all over the space, right? So I think one of the most powerful ads I've ever seen was the one by British Airways. Remember when people from all over the world came together and they made this big face, smiley face, the
Oh
big
yeah.
smile?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was amazing.
Yeah. That was
Something
nice.
very different in those days, and
Yes.
very, very powerful. It
Yes.
just brought people from different countries together, and I kind of connect with it.
It does.
Yeah.
One skill every marketer should have.
Sensitivity.
True. Your
Yeah.
proudest professional achievement?
That's again a difficult one, but I would like to say my children's books. I'm
Aw.
a children's book author, and they were my work for my children, and not written for anybody else. It went out into the world, definitely, but I like the impact that it made and the difference it made to my child's thinking. Yes.
I love that. If you could work in any other industry other than marketing, what would it be?
I probably would have been a chef.
Ah, I like
Yes.
that.
I love cooking.
I
I
like-
love feeding people. I love cooking. I love making people happy with food.
I think that's
I'm
my
a
love
foodie
language
myself.
too. Like feeding people is like my thing.
Yes.
Yeah, I get you. I feel you there.
Yes.
If you could instantly become an expert at something, what would it be?
AI.
I like
Could
that.
be. Yeah, because I'm always a little technically challenged. Coming from the world of print, I mean, being in digital marketing, people expect us to be completely out there, but they forget that we've come from different worlds. So for me, this journey in Canada itself has been of growth in the digital sphere, coming out of my comfort zone. So
And that-
definitely, I would like to be a little bit more technically savvy.
Yeah, that is a beautiful story also. Maybe after, when I have one more question in my rapid fire and then we'll dive into that.
Sure.
And the final one was, if you could live anywhere in the world, where would you live?
Oh, I love being in Canada.
I love
I
Canada too.
absolutely wouldn't live anywhere else. No, I do miss Bangkok, to be very honest, because of the food. I miss my home country because of my people there. But Canada has kind of just brought everything in together. It's been an amazing 11-year journey over here, and I really wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
Oh.
I'm very happy here.
I totally feel you, because the day I landed, and I don't know, I just felt a sense of home, which is hard to explain, because I thought I had that feeling of being at home with my family in India, and I do have that feeling with my family, but the place feels like, the whole country feels like home, which is, I don't know, it's just beautiful. You're not explaining yourself everywhere you go, and you're like, I don't know, it just felt like home. And I think it's a lot to do with the amount of focus that the Canadian government has begun to put on multiculturalism and celebrating everybody, the individual, for who they are, right? So it definitely resonated very well with me, and I felt at home. It was a powerful moment for me.
It's interesting to see that, Kate. Would like to add something over there, because the first day I landed in Canada, the immigration officer, he stamped our passports and he said, "Welcome home."
Yes.
And that gave me goosebumps, because I've never heard those words even in my home country.
Yeah, the immigration experience, like the experience there, like when we were young, we traveled a lot to Dubai because my dad worked there. So every time we went back home, that experience was mostly like them trying to see how many chocolates they can take from you. Or it was such a horrible experience. So that is what I was like, that was my benchmark, right? And that was what when I came here alone, that is what I was expecting. But it was so good, and I was like, wow, there's a place without corruption. I know my standards were set
Yes.
so low, but and obviously India is not the same that it was that many years ago, but it was definitely something that instantly hits you in the face, because you can see the
That's true.
difference and you can feel it, and you just
Absolutely.
feel safer, you feel stronger, you feel thankful. It's a beautiful feeling.
Yes, it is.
You're a marketing communications professional with over 10 years of experience. You probably have some valuable insights to share with our listeners. I would love to have you on the show, learn about your journey and your experiences. If you want to be on the show, please email me at marketingoverchai@gmail.com and we'll take it from there. Thank you. Moving back to something you touched upon at the rapid fire was, you've seen kind of your career has also evolved with the way content has. You've started strong in print and then you've moved to digital and SEO. You're no longer writing for just, you know, uh, people. It's people and and there's been such a shift in the kind of audience because now everything is not geographically limited. It is more than that. So I'd like to hear from you, what has that journey and that evolution from print to digital been like? Can you share your experience?
Yeah, certainly it's a great question because, yes, so I was predominantly writing for print and television and radio. And when I came to Canada, the first thing I noticed was there was no publication. And that was quite surprising because I expected to have a range of magazines to write for, to freelance for, but there was nothing. And of course, by then, social media had become very strong. And I was thinking of writing a book about my life journey at some point in time, but I was told, don't get into books. That's going to be outdated very soon. Write a blog. And I couldn't figure out really how a blog could have the same amount of impact as a book, because I've always found a book to be a lot more immersive, right? And that's when my tryst with the digital world began as I was attempting to understand it more. And the one good thing about this Canada is the opportunities it gives you to upskill.
Yes.
I went back to school, and that was not easy after so many years, right? But
Hmm.
I joined up George Brown College first, and I upgraded. I went into social media marketing, learned up about blogging, about content marketing, and it was wonderful to actually top all those courses because I kind of began to regain my confidence. It's easy to lose your confidence
Yeah.
when you come into a new country and suddenly all the skills that you came with are redundant because they can't even spot the country you've come from on the map. So it's no use showing a portfolio when they can't spot the country. They have no clue where Jakarta is, where
Yeah.
Bangkok is,
Does
and
this really
what.
exist?
Yes, yeah, it doesn't exist. The good thing was, of course, I worked in bigger companies, but then the kind of work that we'd done was a lot more international. And Canada tells you to become more insular, Canadian experience,
Yes.
right? So I had to actually sell myself down to fit
Mhm.
into the environment. I couldn't
Yes.
talk of the bigger world. I had to like adapt to a smaller, more insular world. And which
Mhm.
is surprising because quite honestly, Canada should be looking for experienced Canadians, not Canadian experience.
That's
But
beautiful. I love that line.
but yes, going back to university, going back to college definitely helped. I began to understand the market. Initially, it was a little bit difficult because even the case studies I couldn't follow, right? Because I've not grown up on the advertising scene over here. So it takes time to culturally reconnect with your environment. But with every course, with Twitter marketing, Facebook marketing, content marketing, blogging, I began to get more comfortable with my world. And then different doors began to open up. And I realized that without these courses, it would have been very difficult because it's not just enough to build on your experience. You do need to have a real world connection, right? To understand the advertising scene, to understand the people, the culture, all of that. And then I walked into a digital marketing firm with a full time job. And I was specializing in blogging. Before that, I was blogging. I suddenly
Mhm.
became a blogger. I began to document my Canadian life and began to get a lot of followers.
Nice.
And that's when I realized the power of blogging and the importance of blogging. And I thought, let me just learn this up and become a professional blogger. Perhaps I can get something out of it professionally and in terms some monetary value. That
Mhm.
definitely helped.
Yeah, I think that
Didn't
part is
realize it's
very
important.
inspiring to me as well. The fact that you were able to turn that hobby into something that, actually could bring in a stream of income. That's beautiful. And I think Canada has a lot of opportunities for that. Like, if you are ready and willing to put in the work, you will likely see results if you're doing it right.
Certainly, certainly. The only thing is, like, when I was doing my own blogs, I was writing about my personal life.
Hmm.
And I decided to basically, because people were waiting for the next blog to be out. And I realized that my words do have impact. That was happening in Malaysia as well, in Jakarta as well. I was given all these opportunities. So when I went into the professional sphere with that knowledge, I realized you can make an income out of it. But the world of digital was evolving very fast. It's
Mm.
not enough to just be a blogger. You can't grow beyond a point when you're just a blogger. You have to expand your skills. Yes. And that's when I got into SEO, probably the wisest decision that I took at that point in time. And at this point in time, I've completely deviated. I will not say deviated, I've expanded into SEO.
Hmm.
And this is very important because, as you very correctly said, the world is being ruled by Google now.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And it's very important for us to please Google, to understand Google, to have a relationship with Google. SEO is like really all about that, having a relationship and a friendship with Google because algorithms keep changing.
Yes.
It's not
Yes.
enough to just learn about keywords and hope everything falls into place. There's a lot more happening because audience trends are changing with technology changing. So earlier we had desktop search. So we typed in keywords in a certain way. Now we have iPhones and we have GPS
Voice.
and we have Alexa. So voice search. We are now slowly getting into visual search with iPhone 16 coming out, with
Hmm.
AI overviews coming out.
Hmm.
All of that is a
Yeah.
future.
And I think there's
So,
also a small
yeah,
shift. We're not really in the next couple of years, it's not Google's not the dominant search, but there's Google, there's probably going to be Gemini and the other AI wings to it, and Chat GPT and like the other AI options that you have, and like the voice stuff that you mentioned. So it's no longer just one algorithm. And the thing about the algorithm is like, yes, you have to be friends with it, yes, you have to please it, but these are evolving as per consumer behavior. They're
yes,
looking to see what the person really wants at the end of the day. So you have to keep them in mind, but you also have to keep your customer in mind because at the end of the day, that's whose eyeballs and whose attention you want. And people can read the difference between something written entirely for a search engine versus something written for them. So there's multiple things that you're going to have to look at all the time, and there's also the mad keyword rush and research and the that battle over there that you have to be very strategic about, and to know exactly to step away from the clutter or have the budgets to burn and be on top of certain things. So it's definitely a more complex world than from when I started, for sure. And I started when it was a digital world already. So I
mhm,
can imagine the skill and the strength and the evolution of media and the evolution of just your ability to adapt. That is something that needs to be
just that,
celebrated.
yes, yes. And not just that, the other thing is it's becoming a very interactive world.
Mm.
Yeah, like earlier, advertising and journalism with the print dominance was all one way communication. We were talking, the audience was listening. Now, suddenly, the audience is talking back. The audience is getting a voice probably even stronger than ours because they are becoming influencers.
Yes.
Today's marketing is about YouTubers,
Yes.
right? Yeah, it's not just us making a difference. It's about everybody talking with each other and people reacting in real time. Through that, the commonality is the user. And somewhere along the way, with all these Google algorithms coming in, we were forgetting about being helpful for the consumers. It was about
Hmm.
pleasing search engines and not about pleasing people.
Hmm.
So the algorithms are like now changing and bringing us back to reconnect with the people.
Hmm.
And this is the reason why SEO is important for a writer, because unless you know SEO,
Mhm.
you will not be able to be evolving with the times.
100%. I completely agree. But how have like how have audience expectations changed over the years, and how can content creators keep up with these evolving demands?
They can't.
That's true.
I don't think we can't even expect them to keep up. So it's a changing world. It has always been a changing world. First, the conversation, the whole idea is to follow the conversations. The conversations were first happening in the marketplace. So where you have conversations in the marketplace, the advertisers follow you there. Now the conversations are happening on social media. So you can't say, I will not be on social media. Those who are not tuning into social media are losing out in a big way. They're falling back. They don't really know what is happening. You have to follow conversations. You have to listen. Unless you listen, you can't learn. That
Absolutely.
is the biggest, yeah.
And
And
it's difficult
even in
also, like
future, yeah.
you have to set yourself up to listen in a very neutral way. And I think like having a journalistic background, it teaches you to do that because you can, find yourself in the face of very polarized content. The algorithms give you what you like and give you a lot of it. So, that's also a very interesting note because sometimes you become very disconnected from reality when you fill yourself with just one string of thoughts. So one of the things that I do is I try to something that I don't like or something I don't agree with, I will first try and go and understand what it is about before I have an opinion. And I don't allow myself to have an opinion until I really know why that exists. But but I don't see a lot of that happening around, and I do think that that's a space that there is growth. One of the things in a similar way is the multicultural content or like the kind of development that's happening here in Canada, because it is allowing different perspectives, different people who are not mainstream to have a voice. And I know that that's a place that's very close to your heart, and you do a lot of work in that in that organization. So I want to give you a chance to talk a little bit about the work you guys do, and what are some of the challenges in creating content for a very diverse audience? And, talk about it like from just being a content creator and even like what's the space for marketers as well, because that is, most of our audience here.
And suddenly in digital marketing, everything has come together,
Hmm.
including social media marketing. So
Hmm.
what's happening is when you're writing a story, you're researching, you're connecting, you're getting it all out, but you're keeping SEO in mind when you're publishing it. And then you have to market it yourself. There is no book that's being distributed everywhere, or a magazine or a newspaper, right? So what's happening is suddenly journalists have to double up as marketers.
Yes.
And marketers have to get into the journalistic world. They have to research for information because you don't know whether the information is real or fake, thanks to
Nope.
social media.
Nope.
So you learn to fact check information before you bring it out. So everything has like fallen into place, everything has come together, and through that we are discovering different audiences. The importance of multicultural marketing in today's Canada. Because unless you dive deeper and get to know people on a deeper level, you cannot resonate. You can't create either a story or an ad or a digital blog or anything for that matter unless you go deeper. It's very important too. There's no cookie cutter formula for success, right? Because people over here in Canada, they come from different backgrounds,
Hmm.
they have different needs, and they need to see themselves. You can't have one poster for everyone because you don't see yourself there.
Hmm.
It's very important to find that connection and to go down deeper and to
Hmm.
be where they are. So, whether you like it or not, you have to be on social media and many of these platforms. I'm not very active on Twitter, but I have to be on Twitter to see what's happening there. I like Instagram, it's a private account for me, but I also have a public account just to see what's happening out there. LinkedIn, you have to be completely clued in because recruiters are looking at your LinkedIn profile and not just in your resume anymore. right? So
Absolutely.
you become a brand. You become a brand. All of us are a brand. And all the worlds have come together, whether it's journalism, whether it's social media, whether it's digital marketing, whether it's advertising, everything has come into this. The difference is the future now, because AI has brought in a different perspective of illusion. And you suddenly have unreal people and unreal voices, and you don't know who to trust. So
Yes.
earlier, advertising and journalism was all about building trust. And now suddenly you don't know who to trust and what to trust. And AI is not always accurate. People say, oh, AI can replace humans. No, they cannot replace humans. What we can do, AI cannot. AI cannot have emotions, for example. If you can't have emotional resonance, then your work does not connect. It's
And you
as
can
simple
train
as
a
that.
model, you can train an AI model to be empathetic, to be respectful, or to understand that, certain cultures do certain things different way. But then what happens is also stereotyping. You know, if it's, for example, like a lot of the algorithms realize I'm Indian, but they give me ads in Indian languages I don't understand at all, which there's a complete disconnect, right? Like it's interesting. I mean, I like that they're trying,
Yes.
but it's there's still a lot for that to evolve, and it's going to take a while for sure.
The second thing is AI is not coming up with anything original. It's all curated content.
Yeah,
It's all rehashed content cleverly.
yeah.
And AI is also dependent on a human for prompts. If you don't give the right prompt, you will not get the right answer. So I think the future is all about a human who understands AI technology rather than taking over by itself.
Mhm.
Without a human, I think an AI is powerless or will just go in the wrong direction.
That's beautiful. That actually very smoothly segues into the next segment, which is about trends in the future. And a lot of people think that content creators are very threatened by AI because you don't need to hire a ghostwriter for your
Mhm.
LinkedIn. Like if you're a subject matter expert, or you might be able. You don't need to hire someone for social media because ChatGPT can apparently write that now. I find that quite funny because, like, while part of it is true, there's so much changing all the time. There's no chance in hell that, I mean, I would like to actually have a contest with an AI bot that's designed and like one person and one machine, and like measure success, because I'm pretty sure I know who'll win. You know, it's but it's interesting, like the narrative, what people think is happening is, or what people are saying is likely going to happen. If you're into it, it's funny, and there's many ways you can use that to your advantage. But I think it's really funny when people say, so many people are going to be out of jobs and stuff like that. If
Yeah.
that's the kind of content they were creating, then maybe fine. But if you're a good content writer, you know what to do with that, with that piece of with that tool that you have now. It's not threatening in any way.
Yeah, see, every tool has its own power, right?
Hmm.
So it's like taking a knife in our hand, and it can be very dangerous, but it also helps to slice the vegetables.
Of course.
It's both ways. It's a double-edged sword. But then the difference is with AI, you don't really know how it does not really have a mind of its own. It needs to be controlled, firstly.
Hmm.
Not every information is authentic.
Hmm.
It can be very, very inaccurate. And we are
Yes.
finding that even for AI overviews, which is going to be soon introduced.
Hmm.
And a lot of the information, or there's a lot of misunderstanding, for
Yes.
example, and we've seen this over and over. It's like a spell check. So a spell check can't catch spelling mistakes, which are spelled correctly, but are not in context. So, it happens all the time, right? You still need a human to proofread. It's the same with AI. So AI has its benefits in many ways. It can provide you with a roadmap very quickly. But how you take it forward and the kind of information it gives, if you're completely dependent on that, then I think a business owner's just digging their own grave.
Yeah, very well said. And it's very true. Earlier this summer, I launched my marketing and communications consulting business. Since then, I've launched a website, I've ran a social media summer campaign, and shared that entire journey online on LinkedIn. If you could use some help sharpening your brand or leveling up your social media, please reach out to me. I would love to work with you. You can reach out to me by emailing me at marketingoverchai@gmail.com. I'll leave a link in the description. Thank you so much. Your support means a lot to me. And now let's get back to the episode. What trends are you most excited about when it comes to the future of both content marketing as well as digital journalism?
I think I'm pretty excited about technology in general because I think we're getting very comfortable in many ways. It's like not even about voice search anymore. You look at an app and it opens up, right? You have visual search. But with that, you also lose connection with the real world in many ways. And that is worrying for me. I think in many ways, I'm also a little concerned and not always excited. In terms of excitement, there are a lot of conveniences. Things happen faster, things happen at your fingertips. You don't have to step out of the house to do a lot of things because things are coming to you. Is that good for you? I'm not quite sure. So we have to wait and watch, and we have to be on top of AI and not let it rule us. But it's very important to keep an eye on these changes and to keep upskilling. You can't get complacent because the moment you take a little break and something moves on, then it's very difficult for others to catch up. So, yeah. So while I'm excited about a lot of things in the future, I'm also very concerned about losing track with reality, and not for our generations, because I think we've seen it all and we are probably a lot more prepared for the future, but definitely for my children, not even the millennials, but with the Gen Zs.
Mhm.
Because they have grown up in a world which is so technical and so mechanical. They may not know how to operate in a world which does not have enough technology for them to survive on,
Yeah.
right? They've also become very impatient for success. It's a very quick formula for them. You become an influencer, you make money. It's not always about making money. It's about making a difference. And which is why you probably have so many mental health issues nowadays, because people are anxious, people are stressed out. It's a very fast moving world.
Yeah.
So all of that is coming into play. It's not necessarily, it's got its pros and its cons, I would say.
Yeah. I think that's also like short form and TikTok content. It kind of warps your sense of time because everything is done. Like you can see somebody baking bread completely within like 20 seconds, which is actually half a day's worth of work, right? So it kind of warps your sense of time because there's so many other things like, people just make it really quick and short and snappy and people it's difficult for people to understand how much effort that goes into production and into actually doing, and when they try and then they can't get it as quick as what they saw it causes frustration. So that's also a very interesting way to look at it, and a lot of people follow, a lot of the mental health thing comes from following the wrong channels. I would say a lot of people are just flexing online or are fake online, and it's really sad.
Catfishing, all of that is
Catfish.
happening.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's really sad. And the AI scams are just going to be like next level. So I'm always, curious and like trying to log into seminars to learn how to protect myself and, how to protect older people I know from things like this because they're so targeted and they're so
Yes.
scary. That's the real Halloween story if you if you were to ask
True,
me.
true, true.
That's what it's become. So it is difficult to stay on top of things. But back to I digress.
Sure.
Yeah, back to my question. Content has become more data driven, and how do you think storytelling will continue to play a role in impactful content, especially with the rise of shorter attention spans and short form content, and how do you think that's going to play out?
Yeah. So while attention span is getting shorter, Google is also getting smarter. So short form content is not always prioritized anymore. Google is also looking at long form helpful content. It's basically trying to present an answer. Google is not even a search engine